Yes, guys, welcome back. It's another episode of Teams Like Brighton, and so you can tell it was a very good weekend, wasn't it, Richie?
You're so happy right off the bat.
I am. I'm very smug. I'm very happy right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very, very happy. Mitoma's magic once again, the cherry on the Sunday, and another 3 points in a game where you just felt in previous years, we would have lost or get a ball draw out of, but we clung on and we got a great result there. Huge 3 points, huge. Just annoying that Spurs beat City, but and I can't believe I'm actually saying that as well.
I know.
But Richie, go on. Let's go ahead with the game. What are your thoughts on the Albion?
Yeah, I completely agree. It did seem like a Saturday where it was going to be another 0-0 draw, something out of the kind of Graham Potter playbook from years gone by of being the better team, having the chances but not taking them. To be fair to Bournemouth, they did have quite a few decent chances. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. When Brighton were in Bournemouth's halves, they sat very deep and then hit them on the counter. But when it was sort of a Brighton goal kick, they had, 4, 5, 6 sometimes players really, really pressing high up. And there was a couple of times when Brighton were able to pass their way out from the back, but then on other occasions they didn't, and they actually turned the ball over. And they had quite a few chances where they could have actually got at least something from the game. But yeah, I just remember thinking this might be like another sort of Nottingham Forest from earlier on in De Zerbi's tenure. And I think this for me is maybe an even bigger sign that Brighton are progressing even further under De Zerbi than they were under Potter, because they're winning when they're not playing that well, when they're not firing on all cylinders. They're winning ugly. They're showing that they can win late on. And, it shows a new, maybe another string to Brighton's bow, that they're winning in this way. And we can segue on to the man who did it, Caicedo Mitoma. I think that's his 6th goal in his past 9 games, 5 in 7. Just a real quick thing. I just saw on Garth Crooks' Team of the Week, Mitoma was chosen, but he said that he's the most exciting player that he's seen in the Brighton shirt since a young Peter Ward burst onto the scene in the 1970s. Nearly 50 years ago.
That's a claim. That's a big, bold claim. I'm surprised Garth Crooks knows about Peter Ward and the Albion. I'm surprised he knew that Brighton existed in the 1970s, really.
But yeah, so I guess, what's your take on the Magic Man, Mitoma?
He's just... What else can we say about him? He is just formidable for us. He's indispensable right now. And like you say, was it five goals in his last 7 games is a ridiculous form that, you associate with some of the elite players. This is a guy with a PhD in dribbling, and
I'm not sure PhD. I think maybe undergraduate.
A thesis or dissertation, or I mean, he should have a PhD. We should call him Dr. Mitoma, because what he's doing on the pitch is just it's mind-boggling. It's so good how he contributes to the team, and not just in a one-dimensional way. It's an all-round team performance from him, supporting on the wings, helping the attackers out. And if we lose the ball, he's tracking back. He's got everything about him that you just want for in a basic player, and he's got the attitude for it, and he's willing to just get himself in those positions, take the risks. And I mean,
what a header!
And what a header! Oh. I wouldn't expect a header from a player of Mitoma's caliber. You don't really see that, but it was just, the connection was perfect. The ball from Samiento, it was sublime. And for Mitoma to get the head and turn it in from the angle he attempted to head the ball anyway was fantastic as well. And well, the rest is history. And the way they celebrated as well, you could just tell that they were really giving it their all in that match. even with everything that's happened over the last week or so, they're all still there together as a team, really pushing on. And I felt like after that match, there was a genuine sense of belief that this team wants Europe. And I think that was the result that kind of like you look back and go, that was the minute they really believed that we could get this.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think he scored a fantastic header against Wolves in that 3-2 win, and that was like, oh wow, I didn't know he could do that, and he's just backed it up again. I also love the fact that because Bournemouth were doubling up on him a number of times during the game, and when he did get the ball, so often he was sort of actually turning, he was facing towards sort of Brighton's goal. He was having to pick the ball up in difficult positions where he couldn't really attack. And then, it was only, I think, later in the first half that he was actually able to run at Bournemouth's defence. And I think now his particular dribble, I can't quite remember which Bournemouth player is against, but there's a photo of him just literally almost like praying. He's on his knees, and Mitoma just scoots past him, and he's just like, just clutching over there. It's just like, wow, this guy can do anything. But but just for his goal, what I liked was that obviously he was having success down the left, but it wasn't something wasn't quite being able to stick. What I liked is that he gave the ball to Sarmiento, and then instead of just like maybe being an overlapping player, he was like, no, I'm going to go into the box. I'm going to, take this game by the scruff of the neck and try to do something myself. And, in a game where Danny Welbeck maybe didn't play his best, and Deniz Undav showed signs of promise, but obviously he missed a kind of a hat trick of chances in quick succession early on. For the winger to pop up like that shows a lot about his quality and caliber. After the game, Roberto Zerbi said this: Mitoma didn't play the best game of his life, but he can always score. I can never substitute him because I felt during the game he could score. So he's undroppable because he's that good. And he also actually said that he might have to raise the target of goals that he set for Mitoma. I think a few journalists, we interviewed Solly March a week or so ago, and he said that I think if he and Mitoma got, 10 goals, then I think De Zerbi would take them out for dinner or vice versa, whatever. But I think De Zerbi he actually said he might have to up that for Mitoma, because I think Mitoma is now on 7 goals for the season. So the scoring rate he's in, he could get to that by the end of February. So, but yeah, he's just such an exciting player. He's a joy to watch, and Crystal Palace beware.
Yes, absolutely. And despite Mitoma's magic as well, there was another big moment at the club. Maybe not a lot of people being the highlight package, but Moises Caicedo made an appearance from the bench. Safe to say, there was a lot of cheers for his name. He's back in the team, which was really good to see. I was happy with how he plays. He didn't look like he was in second gear. The makeshift midfield of Billy Gilmore and Pascal Gross did okay, I felt. Obviously not to the same level as McAllister and Caicedo. McAllister suspended, obviously. And Caicedo, well, he had to be on the bench, didn't he? He just had to. He was off for a few days. So he wasn't probably up to the safe wavelength. But a good second half substitute, and contributed a lot really to the goal as well. I felt the substitutions that De Zerbi did were absolutely spot on. Changed the game for us. And Moises and Caicedo again was just that one person that could help battle in that midfield, because I felt that was a real tough area for us to really control. I felt Bournemouth knew how we were set up and how we could how they could defend, and us trying to counteract that was tricky. But I felt Caicedo contributed to that a lot. What did you think?
Yeah, sure. I think he added a bit more sort of bite to the midfield. I thought Gross and Gilmore were okay, but yeah, I think it was a very even battle, and I think his introduction just before the hour mark tipped it more towards him in Brighton's favour. It was interesting. They're obviously in the lead up to the game. De Zerbi said he basically called on the fans to support Caicedo, and 99% of the fan reaction was positive. Really, they were singing his name. Obviously he's singing the Caicedo song. Great reception when he came on, which is a good, credit to the Brighton supporters there, because, some people have said, Caicedo is a mercenary because he's one of many who, is fueled by ambition to go to a so-called, bigger club. So yeah, I think that was Lewis Dunkers, I think, said that in an interview with TalkSport that it's been a difficult time for him, but the team have welcomed him back into the fold. He says he's young, and Brighton players are going to stick with him, and I think that's key. Brighton teammates have forgotten about this. He's a fantastic player. Let's try to push on to Europe. The fans are like, we recognise this. This is a brilliant player. If he does go in the summer, let's make the most of him and hopefully achieve history with the club. But yeah, interesting enough, De Zerbi said it was actually an easy decision for him not to start Caicedo, because obviously he stayed away for the club for a few days whilst the Arsenal were trying to make the bid. So he didn't actually train for the first half of the week. So De Zerbi said it was an easy decision because I have confidence in Billy Gilmour. Caicedo lost one part of the week, so it was right for Gilmour to start. And today he also said, on Saturday, that they had many young players. We won the game with many young players that are not playing much, and that was just a slight sort of aside from that. We had an 18-year-old debutant in Facundo Buonanotte, 19-year-old Julio Enciso, come on, 20-year-old Jeremy Sarmiento got the assist. That is, for all that Graham Potter is lauded about, bringing on younger players, and there is definitely credit for that. But I think maybe De Zerbi is just the next level on from it. I mean, I don't know I'm pretty sure Graham Potter wouldn't play all those three players at one time in a Premier League match when they are looking for a match winner, maybe in a FA Cup or a Carabao Cup potentially. Obviously, he did give Evan Ferguson his Premier League debut last year, so he's shown he can do it, but to that extent, maybe not. But yeah, I think great show of support from Brighton's fans. The players are definitely behind him. De Zerbi's behind him, and hopefully Brighton can just forget about this episode and focus on a bright future.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Like you say, it is amazing the fact that we brought on three very talented youngsters to come in, not just to play, but to try and change the match. It wasn't a case of we resigned to a draw. We were still pushing on from that. And Buonanotte, I was actually really impressed with what I saw from him and from his limited time on the pitch. He looks like a quality player. Looks very, very good on the ball, very sharp. He seemed in sync with everyone. And Gross seemed to be the one that's kind of like gave him the little pointers around the game as well, just trying to say, be wary of this, be wary of that, which was great. That there's leaders in this team, and everyone around just seems to be right on the same page in it, which is fantastic to see. I think as well, another highlight from that match, headline, shall we say, Deniz Undav getting his first Premier League start. I wasn't expecting it. I don't think many people were expecting that. I think a lot of us expected Danny Welbeck to start, but Undav getting that start as well was an interesting one. It was just so frustrating when he had that amazing triple chance. Like, if ever there was a moment that kind of like put into context how his time at Brighton has been, it was that moment, that triple chance, blocked by the defender, saved by the keeper, and then he struck the post. And it was just all those moments in one. You could just see how he felt in one of the highlight reels. You could just see him just get so frustrated with the miss. Personally, I thought he did okay. He did all right. He seemed to be a little bit sharper than he did at the start of the season. It's just so frustrating, the fact that he just didn't capitalise with an early lead in that match.
Yeah, I mean, I think he said after the game that the complexion of the game would have potentially been quite different because Bournemouth would have been chasing the game and they would have maybe left more gaps for Brighton to exploit. Yeah, what was it? So obviously he does well to intercept a bad pass from the goalkeeper Neto. Looks like initially I'm thinking shoot first time, but then he takes a touch, I think, to go past the defender. And then I think the defender makes a block. The ball comes back to him. Neto makes a block. Ball comes back to him, and then he hits the post. And you're like, oh, that was yeah, what a chance. That he actually said himself he was angry that he didn't score that. But he also thought that he did a decent job, in terms of helping out others in terms of build-up play and layoffs and that sort of thing. And I did ask him after the game. Basically, Solly March has said that to get the best out of him, he needs a run of games. And I think he basically said, if I had 2, 3, or 4 games in the legs, then it will be different, and it would benefit me and the team. So I think he's definitely hopeful of a starting spot against Crystal Palace. It'll be interesting to see if Evan Ferguson is back fit. Obviously, he missed this game because of a knee injury. Interesting enough, because I thought that would be an ankle injury after obviously Fabinho's horror challenge the weekend prior, but it turns out it was actually a knee injury, and then it wasn't nearly as serious as first feared. So that's good, but obviously he wasn't in the squad at the weekend. I do think if he's fit, he probably will come back in ahead of Undav, but I do think that maybe he does deserve a bit of a run on the side just to try to get his confidence up. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. It would be interesting to see how Zerbi goes for that Palace match. I think that's going to be the one where he's he's probably getting briefed on and go, this is the one that the fans really care about. It'll be interesting to see how he sets up and how he deals with that intensity in that match at Sellers Park. I think he's definitely going to get a certain welcome over at the Holmesdale end for sure. So that will be fun. I think giving Deniz Undav the chance, I think he should personally start. It depends how Evan Ferguson is, though. I don't want to see him pushed in and make a start a bit too soon just because it's Palace. By the sounds of it, he's got what I believe is a bone bruising. I believe is the official diagnosis. So while that doesn't sound too bad, it depends on how severe the bruising is, and you don't want that to have a longer effect on Ferguson. He is only 18 years old. You want to try and nurture development, nurture that recovery time. He will have plenty of chances getting into the team. I think personally we should give him another game, probably this one and then Fulham, and then look to bring Ferguson in from the bench, just so that we have that rotation in place. And I think maybe rotate Ferguson with Welbeck, really, just to give Undav that chance. You say, like, if we could see him for a handful of matches, week in, week out, we might be able to see the player that USG were ranting and raving about, and who was formidable for them in that brilliant season for them last year in Belgium. But we just haven't had that moment yet. And in the Premier League, you don't get given a lot of chances. You really have to just grab them in 90 minutes rather than just say, oh, I need a couple more games just to get my rhythm there. So hopefully he does get the couple of games that he needs, that he wants, and then we can actually see the player that we all believe and hope that he is in the Premier League. Big if, though, because if Evan Ferguson's sharp enough, Zerbi might actually go and put forward what he knows best. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. So after the game, Undav was asked, why did you? Because there was a lot of loan interest, especially from Championship clubs, to recruit him in January, and he was basically asking, why did you stay? And he said, when I start something, I want to finish it, the season with the team. I had a time where I was thinking about a loan, but I cleared my mind and said, you know what, Dennis, stay with Brighton for a few more months. Everything is going well. Maybe you will get time, and just fighting for my spot. I don't want to be a quitter. So that's why I stayed. So that's a good attitude to have. He's actually a really interesting guy, really nice guy, very no disrespect to footballers, but some of them don't give the most interesting quotes. But Undav is definitely in the more charismatic, interesting category. Also, he was asked about playing in the Premier League and the step up from the Belgian top flight, where he scored 27 goals in all competitions for Union SJ last season, and he said it doesn't really feel real, but it's testament to the work I'm doing right now. He's basically said, I think I've been a professional for 2 years. He's 26 years old, but he hasn't had the most sort of glamorous route to the Premier League in terms of playing further down the German league, not having much success, but then having a very good time with Union. So yeah, he said, so to play in the Premier League is a big, big step. It's way different compared to other leagues. It's tougher, it's stronger, it's more physical, it's faster. The things you did in other leagues before, you need to step up in the preseason to do more, to be even more ready. Every player who comes to Premier League should focus on doing more than they did before. So I do like that attitude. He wants to prove himself at least until the end of the season. I don't know if maybe that's a sign of him thinking this might not even work out at Brighton, but he wants to give it his all. So credit to him for that. And I do hope that the goals come and he can stay, because I think there's definitely a purpose or value of him being in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how he contributes going forward. I hope he is a success. I love the interview they had at the start of the season about how many different ways he can score goals. He, like you say, he has that. There's a bit about him where he's not just a cliche to the press. He's forthright. He's honest. He's on the ball. And I think he's also his biggest critic as well, and he's not afraid to admit that. And I really like that about him. There's a bit of respect there where I just feel like, yeah, you're not having the best time here. Everyone knows that, and you're the first one to admit it. I like the fact that he said, I didn't want to quit. I don't want to just go out on loan, play a few games, score a couple of goals.
Yeah,
that's not the point of him being here. Far from it. So he wants to push on. He wants to take it from there, and he wants to show to the club that he's a valuable asset to the club. And I hope he does get more chances. Who knows? Maybe the FA Cup match against Stoke as well will help him out with that. That there are plenty of opportunities for him. And as we approach the business end, he will be needed, because we need that rotation. We need that strength in depth. And hopefully when that moment comes, when it all clicks, we'll be talking about a completely different Deniz Undav at the end of the season. I believe that.
Great. Well, yeah, one thing to finish on. So you mentioned it earlier. We were disappointed that Tottenham beat Manchester City, and that just shows how far Brighton have come. That they're going, oh God, we could have closed the gap to fifth to 2 points or whatever it was. But obviously Brighton are sixth in the Premier League. We've got rivals Crystal Palace next. That would be great if they could beat them at Selhurst Park. That would be delicious. But the final thing, so Zerbi was asked about, Europe again. Can they qualify for Europe? And he gave a sort of interesting answer, a little bit cryptic maybe. He said, you have to ask this question to Tony Bloom. For sure, we would like to try to arrive in the Europa League, but for the level of the club, it is not my problem. I don't know the politics of the club. I can't decide, no. I can decide the way in terms of quality of play, in terms of style of play, yes, the first 11, but the politics of the club, no. So, yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to make of those comments. I'm not sure if that was still because, prior to the transfer window shutting, he did say that he wanted more players in, but obviously that's shut now. I'm not quite sure. What do you make of those remarks?
I have no idea either. I read them yesterday, and I was like, "What?" He's just. I think he's just. He's taking on what his mates like Pep Guardiola and over maybe Jose Mourinho, just trying to like spin something so we just talk about absolutely nothing at the same time.
Right.
It's very cryptic, isn't it? Very, very cryptic. I think he's keeping his cards close to his chest. I think he wants to hype up the European momentum while also keeping our feet firmly on the ground. And I think this is how he's approaching it. This is how he wants to deal with it in that way. Apparently that was very much the same when he was at Sassuolo over in Italy. This is the kind of mannerisms that he was like in the press when they were talking about pushing for Europe, getting high up in Serie A, how well they were doing as a team, scoring lots of goals. That's kind of like the mannerism he was in over in Italy, and he seems to be doing the same over here. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not these cryptic messages are going to go even further as the season progresses. Who knows? Yeah, it's De Zerbi's. I think he's enjoying himself. That's for sure. That's the only way I could say. But when he's talking to the press, he's enjoying it. Whereas you have other coaches that just don't. They don't like it. And when they say about like if they want easy life, for instance, they just go and churn the same stuff. But
who could you be referring to?
I mean, I don't know why you're saying it again. We know that. Stop saying it again. Stop giving us sound bites. But De Zerbi, just one who's just he's just enjoying it at the moment. But he's also he's playing to an audience, and I like it.
Yeah, he's real fun to watch on the touchline. He's definitely becoming. He's a very likable figure and very charismatic in the press conferences. He's enjoying himself, and why not? I mean, Brighton are 6th in the league. I mean, how often do you get to say that? And hopefully, that good form can continue away to Paris on Saturday. And we'll be previewing that game a little bit later on the week. But thanks for listening, guys, and hopefully Brighton can mount a charge on the top 6. Well, they're already in the top 6, but maybe even higher. But thanks for listening, guys, and see you again for another episode of Teams Like Brighton.